So which of the following is not a rational number? And then have some numbers.
So they gave some options. All right, well, I can definitely answer that. It looks like, though, the correct answer is not actually on there, so I'm going to explain this a little bit. If you go to my screen, as usual, I'll show you a little bit. Rational number, so it's very important, it has this root word ratio in it. And so essentially what a rational number is a number that can be written as a ratio. That would be the definition of a rational number. So a ratio or a fraction. Also, ratios and fractions very similar. So any whole number is going to be a rational number. So I'm going to kind of make a list here. So whole numbers. Any integer is also going to be a rational number. An integer is basically a positive or negative whole number. So -4, for example, this was one of the options of one of the choices. It was a multiple choice question. That's an integer. So that one is a rational number. They wanted to know which one was not rational. So I'm going to cross out all of the rational numbers. B, we know is a rational number because, well, it's already written as a fraction or a ratio. And that's exactly what makes something rational, is if you can write it as a ratio. So we're going to cross that one out, 1/5. Another thing that would make a rational number rational is if it's a decimal. So it can be a decimal. It can be repeating, or it has to be repeating. It can be non-terminating. Non-terminating means it goes on forever. That's okay. It can still be rational as long as it repeats itself. So if it's not repeating itself, it's irrational. An example of an irrational number would be pi. Pi is equal to about 3.14, and then the decimals, they never repeat themselves. And so therefore, pi is not a rational number because the decimals don't repeat themselves. So answer C is rational because we see that 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, it continues on infinitely, and that 3 is repeating itself, so it's rational. And you would be able to write it as a fraction or a ratio if you needed to. And then lastly, D, that's also a rational number because it's terminating. So any decimal that terminates or ends is also a rational number. It did have, I'm going to guess, so it did have a 5th choice on the question that Antonio read, and it was blank. And I'm going to guess, if I had to guess, it probably was blank because of formatting, and I might guess that it was a pi. I might guess. So either way, we can at least eliminate A, B, C, D. I'm going to assume that your answer then is E, since A, B, C, D, they're all rational numbers. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that definition clears things up. Definitely confusing concept, but it's back to that root word, ratio. If you can write it as a fraction, it's a rational number.
And that's really cool. You know, in language arts we use the root word all the time to figure out the meaning, but I never would have thought of ratio being the root of rational in the math sense. So that's really interesting. I learned something right this minute, so that's great. I hope you did too.